Well, today's video is all about breaking down the different cuts of fruits. The whole idea and purpose of today's video is to ensure that whenever you get fruits in your homes, it's important to cut them, process them in the right way. That way you avoid wastage, you ensure that the nutrient of that particular fruit is right there up to its optimum. Today's video is for all you fruit fans across the world. Let's begin. As someone rightly once said, life is too short. Let's eat mango first. Let's begin with mango. What I'm going to do is, of course, now you can pulp this. All you can do is press this down with the help of the pressure of your thumb. Well, this is where the fruit is attached to the stalk. And this is where also there's some resin, some plant gum, which actually needs to be removed. Now, what you can do is, whenever you're pulping the fruit, of course, with the pressure of your thumb, you're going to press it down, then you remove this, and then you squeeze the pulp out. In this case, what I'm doing is, I'm just letting it be like that because it's not going to come in the way of creating the hedgehog. What's important is to use a sharp knife and cut the cheek of a mango like so. Similarly, let's get the other cheek out as well. Now this way it's going to get a little uncomfortable. So you hold the blade like a pencil, literally like so. Let's go deep within without, of course, inserting or poking the end or the side. See, now this is where the pressure gets just about perfect. You see, this is coming out. The pressure needs to be a little lesser. So just this much. You turn it clockwise or anti-clockwise, and then you further give these gashes at the bottom and your thumb at the top, and you press it on either sides like so. This is where you get the first cut, which is a hedgehog. Well, some people also call it a rosette or a flower, but hedgehog is technically correct. After the hedgehog, let's take the other cheek, turn it at the base and slice it like so. Of course, the knife has to be sharp so that the cuts are clean. Cut the cap off and you peel the mango. Now there's also a way in which you can actually cut it, pull the skin like so, holding one end, one tip. But in that case, there's this texture of the mango that kind of starts showing. So it looks a little not so neat. What I'm doing is I'm cutting it neatly so that the skin is exposed nice and clean like so. The next step is to just create a checkerboard like so on both the sides to the stone of the mango, and then around the surface of the stone you just cut the mango like so. Well, this way you get diced mangoes or cut mangoes. Let's move on to the next fruit, and that is an orange. You can just cut it 1/4 into quarters, and that could be method 1. The second method is to actually insert your thumb into the surface of the skin and pull this out like so, like one of the most easiest methods of peeling an orange. Of course, you have the orange skin, which is the rind, and you also have the pith, which is the bitter part of the orange. You remove all the pith like so, this thread-like thing, which could change the mouthfeel of your orange. So you just pull it wedge by wedge like so. And this is, of course, your orange wedge. Then you just keep pulling like so, keep cleaning. You want to get the cleaning a little deeper, then you snip the top off. And then in case if there's a seed, you can have a quick check. Well, in this case, there's no seed, so it's perfect and fine. Let's keep this aside and move on to the orange again. You cut the cap off. Now, of course, in a lot of ways, the cap also kind of looks beautiful. So do not knock that off. Just keep it aside. So you hold it like so. And with a sharp knife, cut this into slices. Well, that's a nice thick slice. You can also cut it into a half and then use it as a garnish on your desserts and mousses and things like that. Well, this is how you slice an orange nicely and neatly. Let's move on to the next fruit, and that is a star fruit. Well, in this case now, of course, it has these prongs. It's quite a 5-pronged star. Remove this blackened part. Now, if you actually score it too much or cut it too much, you may end up changing the shape of the star, because eventually, of course, it has a natural shape which has to be kind of retained or accentuated. And then you slice it thin or thick. The natural shape needs to beautifully stand out. Now, of course, you can eat this in its entirety. You have these little seeds which also kind of are edible. You don't have to remove this really. There's a little jelly-like thing on the outside, but that's absolutely fine. There's nothing to worry in. Of course, you can use these as garnishes even for your mocktails, or just add in salt and chili powder and eat it just as they are. Let's move on to angels on earth. Innocent, sweet, and green leafy wings reaching heavenwards. Said Terry several years back, and rightly so, one of my most favorite fruits. Very simple, you don't have to really do too much. All you need to do is hull the strawberries. Now, hulling is a method in which you actually hold the leaves together and just pluck them out. If you cut them, of course, you're going to cut the strawberry deeper because that's a whole fruit and you do not want to lose on the yield or the quantity of the strawberry. Twist and pull. Now in this case, of course, the leaves come here and there's a little bit of the stalk that remains. Now in this case, what you do is you literally hold the knife either like a pencil or a pen. You insert it like so and turn the strawberry around. That's where the stalk literally gets pulled out. The next step is to cut this into a half like so. Now, in case you're using this for your desserts and you want the green color on the dessert, just snip the stalk off like so and cut this into a half, retaining the green leafy part. That way, it just stands out on your dessert. It could be a mango dessert or a strawberry dessert or an orange dessert. You either play with the colors. Let's move on to the next fruit, and that is a kiwi. You take the knife, a paring knife preferably, and you insert it casually till it naturally stops. Now, if you see, I'm trying to push it in, but it's not going. This is the time when you actually start turning the knife like so. Again, it's stopping naturally somewhere. It's not going further. It's just stopping somewhere. Now, of course, if you apply a little more pressure, it's going to go right across, but that's where you naturally stop. Now, this is where you start turning the cap and then you pull the cap like so. Now, what you see here or what you notice here is a very, very, very sharp part of the stalk, which is known as the tooth of the kiwi. Now, this is extremely sharp. This can literally slit your throat while eating. I'm going to literally slice it with the skin on. Now, the skin is a little harsh, it's a little prickly, so you generally don't keep the skin on. But if you see, it's got that natural sesame seed-like seed, which really looks pretty and beautiful. Let's keep this aside. Let's move on to the next fruit, and that is a dragon. Now again, there are a couple of ways in which you can cut this or process this. Now this is how you expose the whole fruit. If you want to actually cut the fruit retaining the pink part or the pink portion, then you need to literally cut it like so. You need to literally peel it like so. But before going there, let me also show you another way of slicing the fruit. You just need to cut these little wings that exist like so. You cut this into slices. This can also make your wonderful garnishes retaining the pink part of the pink portion. Well, alternately, you also get a pink colored dragon fruit where the flesh of the dragon fruit is literally pink in color. It's like deep beetroot like pink. Again, we can cut this into slices. The slices can cut into halves or quarters depending on what you're looking at exactly. So this is how you can neatly literally cut the dragon fruit. Now, the ideal way of cutting or peeling a dragon fruit is to create a gash like so, and then you literally pull the skin out. Way of peeling a dragon fruit. It's a little leathery skin. That's where the beautiful, wholesome fruit is. Now, of course, I'm doing this on my palm because I'm kind of used to it and comfortable. You do not try these stunts at home. Let's cut this into these little cubes like so, or these dices as we say it technically. Let's move on to one in a melon. Let's cut this into wedges. Hold it with a very firm grip with your fingers. We cut it into quarters like so. Just ensure you go right till the other end of the melon. You just snip off a portion of the seeds like so. You knock this out, and there you have a nice clean melon. Insert it just like an above the skin, and then run the blade along the surface parallelly like so. Similarly, let's transfer this. Let's move on to a watermelon. Well, one thumb rule while cutting a watermelon is to always cut it in its horizontal position, Never make it stand upright and then cut, because that would lead to kitchen accidents. You enter the knife like so, right in the center, holding the knife and the watermelon as well. You try to insert it right till the center and cut it on the other side as well. This way, of course, you get 2 halves of a watermelon. Keep it at the base and then cut it similarly. The whole idea and purpose is to ensure that we cut it into thick wedges like so. Well, in this case, literally you'll have to run the knife or maneuver it around the surface of the red edible portion, and then you turn it and make your life easy. The next part is to cut it into thick slices. The next is to literally push it with your fingers. This way you're literally opening it up and ensuring it looks like a little designer board for your wonderful breakfast boards. Let's move this aside and cut some more. And cut this into dices. You're supposed to remove it along the contours of the white portion like so. Now let's cut this into thick slices. Now of course you can also use these thick slices or maybe thin slices like so. Just trying to show you as many cuts as I can. So this could also be one of your cuts like so. Let's move on to pomegranate. Now this is where the stalk is. It's literally hanging with the tail at the bottom. What we need to do is remove this cap off. Now generally I know a lot of people who just cut it like so, and the entire equator where the fruit is, it all gets cut and damaged. With all due respect to the farmers, what we need to do is cut it, open it like so. This way you do not end up damaging the seeds at all. If you see, there are these natural contours of the pomegranate. If you see, there's one here, and if you see, there's one here, then there's one here, and then there's one here. So what you do is you start carving it literally like so. Just remove this center core like so. You open this up literally like a flower. The center very comfortably needs to be pulled out, the seeds that are clinging on. Now you take one petal at a time and you press this like so, and with the help of your index finger and thumb, very lightly remove these. Any seed that you see is discolored, that just needs to get thrown. All we need to extract is this plump, ruby-like pomegranate kernel. Let's move on to a papaya. I'm going to cut this into half because it's a little elongated in shape. You can peel it with a knife like so if you're comfortable. Now again, all the fruits that I've shown you till now, you can cut them into dices, into wedges. You can pulp it, you can squash it, you can make sauces out of it. So I'm just giving you like an overview of the different fruits. Let's cut it like so. And now with the help of a spoon, I'm going to remove the pith along with the seeds. Very carefully, let's first scrape only the seeds. The next is to scrape it slightly deeper to ensure that the white pith gets removed without damaging the fruit. You either cut it into wedges like so for your wonderful breakfast platters. You further cut this into dices. I'm just going to keep this aside for now. Let's transfer this in a bowl, and with this, your papaya is also diced and ready. With this, ladies and gentlemen, cut fruits done and ready. Well, I've tried to squeeze out my experience as much as I could over the several years in various kitchens across the globe. If I've missed out on something, I kind of genuinely apologize, and the whole endeavor is to keep showing you and continue showing you all that I know. Bye for now.